time to cross out some underwater menace in X-Out. X-Out is a 1989 game from Rainbow Arts, seemingly first released on the C64, although in the UK it seems that the first review copies turned up for the Amiga, certainly at Ace, and the Amiga version is where we're going to begin. It's an underwater shoot 'em up and you get this natty introduction sequence. And the speech there, if you noticed, said, "Get ready for Cross-Out." Not X-Out, Cross-Out. And I think that's what the original title of the game probably was. It's also referenced on the C64 version. A little bit of glitching on my Amiga there for some reason, but the entire game is based underwater, although you may have thought this was a space shoot 'em up because essentially, well, it is. And the Amiga version here was copyright 1990, so I suspect that C64 version was indeed first. But hey, let's run with the Amiga. So it's a game where you buy ships and you power them up with money you have. You can see the amount of money on the right hand side there, down to 6,000 there. And you need to, if you want more than one life, you have to add more ships. So you don't have much money left to equip the ships. So you need to think about that. Off we go. And I've got a two-directional laser and a missile. And I don't think I've managed to put that onto my extra ships. Otherwise, what happens if you don't buy extra ships is as soon as you die here, it's game over. So I do find that a slightly strange thing about the game, why it doesn't just give you 3 lives and then give the same equipment spec on each ship. But over to the Atari ST. So equipping up my ship there, only got 1 life, just to show you what happens, but I've got 3-way shooting and missiles and a extra thing that fires off lasers if you hold down the fire button. ST version has music only as you play, no sound effects, and it's in a much smaller screen, and look, it's a considerable downgrade from the Amiga version. It's just as playable, but it is. If you were going around your Amiga mate's house wanting to have the usual ST versus Amiga battle, then yeah, this isn't the game to use. This is an example. And the C64 version also welcomes you to Cross-Out. Now I'm hoping with this game that there's no problems with content matches on the music, because the author of the music is the same guy who did the music for Turrican 2, and I know some people have had problems with content matches for copyright when they cover that game. So if there's no adverts on this video, then all is well. So on the 64 here, I've equipped up 1 ship again, because I'm going to be cheating shortly. So it doesn't matter how far I get. So I'm probably a bit more specced up than I should be. There's quite a lot of loading in this game on the 64. Definitely a game you'd want to have on disc rather than cassette. So off I go. 2-way shooter and 2 little drone things, satellites that follow behind me. And on the 64 you have this pattern background, which I'm not sure if I like or not. It does add to the scrolling effect, but might look, well, it might look better on a CRT than it does on an LCD. And over to the Amstrad. ARC Development, or is it ARC Developments doing this? Also did Pang on the CPC, so I have high expectations. And it's a little bit scaled down here. Are we missing some of the weapons there? Possibly we are. No music, just sound effects, but off we go. It's a little bit jerky, but it moves very, very well. It's the frame rate is not as smooth as 64, obviously. One notable thing about X-Out is you can usually shoot the enemy bullets and missiles, which is a really nice touch. So many shoot-em-ups you can't do that. You can't use your lasers to take out the enemy bullets. Spectrum version, I had some fun with this because of the multi-load. It's UN Squadron all over again, looking very similar, same developers as the Amstrad version. So I'm going to jump into the midpoint of level 1 because I'm having to use the RZX archive to get snapshots to jump into the game because I just couldn't get it working. I really struggled and I don't have a tape to do it. So I've got this protection thing going around at the front there. And that most levels, well, not all of them, but most levels have a big baddie or a big-ish baddie at the middle of the level. And back to the Amiga. Well, I'm definitely now cheating. Look how many points I've got. Points are what you use in the game to buy your power-ups. And here's the end of level 1 baddie, which is this big squid thing where you have to shoot its protuberances. Not too difficult, and of course you can shoot most of the things it fires at you, barring those lasers that just shot me there. And I lost a life. So yeah, I'm very specced up on the Amiga. So I'll buy another ship because I can afford to. ST version, oh yeah, you really notice this, don't you? It's really like an... Yeah, if we talk about 8 versus 16-bit, then that's kind of like a 12-bit game. It's neither what you'd expect from a 16-bit nor an 8-bit. C64, looking really good here. And on the Amstrad, the big head of the squid attaches and circles around. And you can shoot the laser beams he shoots on the Amstrad, which you couldn't on the Amiga. See, I did it there again, there again. So, it's level 2 on the Amiga. You get a soundtrack constantly along with the sound effects. And here's another end of level baddie. And if you hold down the fire button with certain power-ups you purchase, you can fire off these kind of walls of laser. But it's the old thing from R-Type. Are you prepared to risk holding down fire and not being able to fire to get that extra boost? Or do you just basically press auto-fire and blast off at them? Spectrum version. Your Sinclair got this 84%. And rather liked it. Although they said it was a bit monotonous at times. Ace gave the 64 version, we're looking at the Amstrad version now, just 470 out of 1,000. And they say it plays like mud. End of level baddie for level 2 on the ST. And C64, which is a... Well, yeah, you look at the C64 version, you're thinking, well, I'd rather have this than the ST. There's something about that ST version. It's like, really? Really? We can't do better than this? I know the Amiga, which we're looking at here, has all the hardware scrolling, and this is level 3 now, I think. We start to get these ball things that you need to shoot. And going through tunnels and these walls you shoot through as well. So you can't shoot those little fireball lasers the enemies fire at you. So you need to watch out for those. But the missiles and everything else you can shoot at. Amiga Format gave the Amiga version 78% and said it was competent. Again, I've probably got an unrepresentative amount of firepower on the Amiga just because I'm using infinite credit. Not an infinite credit, it's got a huge credit boost thing. Basically, on these 16 bits, if you buy the cheapest satellite, or you drag the cheapest satellite on the options screen over the X-Out logo, you'll get, I think it's 250,000 credits. But you don't get infinite lives, so you've just got to make sure that you've stocked up on lives. ST, here we are. This is the ST, if you haven't noticed. Why did the window's so small and... Yeah, it's a 16-bit. And the window's really no bigger than it is on the Spectrum Amstrad version. Speaking of which, here's the Specky, and that, again, middle of level baddie. Fairly easy to dispatch. Getting very busy on the CPC with no evidence of slowdown. ChinnyVision comes to you every Thursday evening, ad-free, unless YouTube's forced adverts on the channel by now, or we've had a content match on this video for copyright due to the music. But if you want to support the channel, we do have a Patreon if you will, details in the description below, and there's also ChinnyVision 2, which is a separate channel to this, where there's more free-form videos, and if you want to go and look at that, again, link in the description below. Thank you. C64. No, I don't like these backgrounds. I don't like the... They're just a bit too busy. Just makes it look a little bit... I mean, I don't agree with Ace saying it plays like mud. I don't understand what their problem is, because it's really fluid. Some tight squeezes to get through there. I mean, if I want to say criticisms on the C64, the missiles can come towards you quite jerkily. They seem to be perhaps character-based. I don't know. Just the missiles, not the lasers. But it pales in comparison to the ST version, where you're just thinking, why? It plays fine, it just seems such a step down. I mean, XL's 89, you're just getting into that time where the Amiga starts to become the lead version on games and people are starting to use the hardware properly. Back to the Specky. Another giant squid thing at an end of level. There's 8 levels in total. It usually takes about 4 to 5 minutes to get through each level. In total, once you've messed around with the options screens, it tends to take half hour to 40 minutes to complete the game. But this big squid baddie on the Amiga, yeah, just get underneath him and you can polish him off pretty quickly. So here we go. I mean, I haven't shown much of this options screen, but you've got 3 levels of lasers and 3 stages for each of them, 4 levels of ships, or 4 levels of missiles and blasters, and then 8 levels of satellites that I'm just loading on now that go around you to protect you. And the higher grade ship you have, the more weapons you can add. It's not clear what each weapon costs, because the game doesn't tell you until you've dragged it onto the screen, which is quite annoying. And it doesn't tell you where to place them necessarily, or what your limitations are for each ship, which is very annoying, because you go, oh, I want that type of satellite, and then find you can't add it, but you can add a lower level of satellite. So it kind of seems arbitrary at times, and it's quite annoying. Perhaps the manual explains it, but frankly, in the heat of the game, you're not going to go back referring to the manual. I'm enjoying this Amstrad version. It looks like the same kind of step down you have from the Amiga to ST compared to the C64, but actually it's very fluid and nice and colourful. I mean, how much smaller is this window than the Amiga? I know the Amiga's got hardware scrolling, but is this really the best they can do on the ST? By the way, I have heard it mentioned online, and I don't know how true this is, that on the 64, ST and Amiga, this may be using part of the same engine as used for Turrican. I can't validate that at all. It seems plausible, but I've got no idea. Here we are on the 64, which is doing the job properly. An 8-bit, you see, okay, it's got hardware scrolling, but an 8-bit doing the job properly. And this is the final level. It's a volcanic level with lots of kind of volcano stuff. Lava, that's it. And there's giant... Let's call them pencils, so they look like pencils you need to get through. A little bit chunky, but it's also smooth. And here's the end of game baddie about to come up, I think. Here we go. And little men start running out of it. I don't know why. They're in some kind of jetpacks, or are they craft? Oh, it's the ST version again. Okay, if you had an ST, you're going to enjoy this. But I just putting them against each other. Of all these versions, the one I'm not going to play is the ST. It's just like, why? At least here on the Amstrad, you're going, oh, this is pretty cool for the CPC. Look at it move. And look at all the bullets coming up behind me with all the satellites and so on. I can't think of many CPC shooters that have as much going on the screen. And there's a tiny amount of slowdown at times, but you really don't notice it. It's not significant. Yes, the graphics are chunky, and yes, I'm cheating significantly. But I can't think of a Amstrad shooter where you are as tooled up as you are in this game. And incidentally, despite having dual-page adverts for the game, Amstrad Action didn't seem to review it. Oh, yay, there we go. Done it on the CPC. And I get a bonus, but I won't be able to spend it. Or get a high score table, perhaps. Congratulations, you've defeated the evil aliens. That's a nice little screen there. Not too much. You know the C64 is going to have more, though, don't you? Spectrum version again. But there is a little bit of slowdown noticeable on the Specky when the big baddies go off the screen. And C64. I'm sure the CPC version does slow down. I just can't say it's noticeable. And that's the game completed on the 64. Level 8. 8 levels in all of these. As I say, about 3.5 to 5 minutes, depending on the level, to complete. Here we go. And this end sequence on the 64 goes on forever. It's about 3 minutes of scrolling captions and a dedicated soundtrack to go as well. So you're being properly rewarded. And if you complete the game on the ST, this is what you get. Oh dear. Didn't get as far as completing it on the Amiga. I ran out of lives. X-Out is an interesting shoot-'em-up. I can see why people criticise it for being a little bit monotonous, but it didn't really bother me. I felt like I was getting a lot of game in there. It actually pulls it off on pretty much all of these systems. If it only existed on the ST, then you'd say it's a good ST shoot-'em-up. The problem is that as soon as you compare it to the Amiga version, you go, oh dear, this is embarrassing. And that's not something any ST owner wants to see. You're probably better off with something like Blood Money to show off your computer. I don't understand what Ace's problem was with the 64 version. It's just as playable as the Amiga. Very, very enjoyable, very polished, and yeah, it's great. Spectrum and Amstrad versions are clearly cut down. Not quite as good as they potentially could be, but there's a lot going on the screen. And on either of these systems, I can't think of many other shooters where you have so many weapons at your disposal at once, and that alone makes it very impressive. My criticism of the game is that you need to buy your extra lives and then tool up those ships, which becomes quite boring. You end up sitting there for a couple of minutes re-equipping your ships again, again, and again. Why not equip the ship just once and then just buy the extra lives and you carry on with your power-ups? It just makes it just a little bit too fiddly and not as enjoyable as, say, Blood Money, which I've already mentioned before. Overall, X-Out is a sign of what is to come on the 16-bits with games like Turrican 2, loads of baddies, loads of shoot-'em-up, same developers. Of course, X-Out is impressive, it is enjoyable, on all these systems to be fair, even the ST. However, I have to say the reason it's a little bit forgotten is because of what the same developers and publishers gave you later.